Hello again, Islanders. It is your guy, Bombo, and today we will review our Week 12 Ballers and Bums, plus all this past week's storylines that will impact the rest of your season. We're getting down to the final two games of the 2023 fantasy season, but hopefully you are in the playoffs and on your way to a championship. Before we dive in, like, comment, and subscribe to All Things Fantasy Island Pod, wherever your favorite shows are offered. This was Week 12. We're going to get right into our ballers. We'll start at the quarterback position. I'm just going to rapid fire some of these off on you because it was a great week for fantasy. So let's get right into it. Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen combined for 9 touchdowns and 600 yards of offense, almost 100 fantasy points combined. Both of these quarterbacks are league winners with a slight advantage going to Hurts since his bye week is over. They never leave your lineup. Dak, again, 331 yards and 4 touchdowns means, like we were saying on the show all year, he is a top 5 quarterback going forward, never leaves your lineup. Trevor Lawrence, 364 yards, 1 touchdown in the air, and 1 touchdown on the ground. He is heating up at the right time, but he does have Baltimore in the first round of the fantasy playoffs. So you might want to keep an eye on that. But right now, he looks like a great starter going forward. Jordan Love, 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, which included 39 yards rushing. If the Packers are trying to go for a playoff push, Love can be started in a pinch. He has sneaky good matchups in the playoffs with Tampa Bay and Carolina on the schedule. He is definitely not a must start, but good to roster. At the running back position, Bijan Robinson in week 12, 110 yards, 2 touchdowns. He is a top 10 set it and forget it running back going forward. He has Carolina, Indy, and the Bears for the playoffs. Atlanta shouldn't be dumb. Just give him as much run as possible. Ramondre Stevenson, Jonathan Taylor, and Josh Jacobs all broke 100 yards with a touchdown on the day. Stevenson is close to a much start. Taylor, rumor has it that he's probably going to miss the next 2, if not 3 games. He might be shut down for the rest of the year. Who knows? Zach Moss is back in play as an every week starter. Kyron Williams, he went off for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns, also 6 catches. There was no rust. There was no pitch count. The Rams want to feed Williams and highlight him as their offensive star. He looked good. He's an RB1 going forward and a league winner. Same can be said about Christian McCaffrey, who also went off again for 140 yards, 6 catches, and 2 TDs. Both are league winners. At the wide receiver position, Nico Collins goes off for 7 catches, 104 yards, and a touchdown, as well as Tank Dell going off for 5 catches and 50 yards, adding a touchdown. Depending on what your depth looks like, these guys are must starts. Texans wide receivers, must starts. Don't think about it. The Texans offense is official like a referee whistle. They're here to stay. Rice from the Kansas City Chiefs was the trusted wide receiver for Mahomes in week 12, and he delivered with 8 catches, 107 yards, and a touchdown. He looks the part, and you could tell he's waiting to break out. It's the KC wide receiver by committee, so starting him could be a gamble. He has 2 weeks right now to audition for a lineup lock for upcoming playoffs. Mike Evans just keeps on catching touchdowns. 6 catches for 70 yards and 2 touchdowns in week 12. He's a locked-in flex / wide receiver 2 as long as Baker is upright. And Devontae Smith goes off for 7 catches, 106 yards, and a touchdown. He's a borderline wide receiver 1 as long as Dallas Goedert is out. I repeat, as long as Dallas Goedert is out. You can do the research. You can check Devontae Smith's numbers when Dallas Goedert isn't there. But once the Eagles are at full strength, it may be hard to trust Devontae Smith as a set it and forget it wide receiver. But again, as long as Dallas Goedert is out, he does not leave your lineup. Now our week 12 bums. Starting off at quarterback, Tua had 243 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. Good players sometimes have bad games. You just have to chalk that up. Tua still stays in your lineup going forward. Justin Fields in week 12 had 217 yards and multiple fumbles. Right now, as much as I like Justin Fields, the player and the story and where he's going in this league, it's hard to trust him for the fantasy playoffs. Please have a backup plan in mind. Brock Purdy had 209 yards, a touchdown, and an interception on Thanksgiving Day. This was more of game script. Purdy is a top 10 quarterback, and if he is somehow your backup quarterback, you have one hell of a tradable asset. If your trade deadline has not already passed, make a move, get a haul for Brock Purdy. Josh Dobbs, the legend of Josh Dobbs, hit a wall in week 12, 185 yards, 1 touchdown, and 4 picks. It's time to cut bait. You cannot count on Josh Dobbs as a fantasy starter. You're going to have to go ahead and just bench him, if not outright cut him. Running back position, Joe Mixon, 60 yards and 2 catches. Not good. Bengals don't look good. He's going to be hard to trust as your every week RB2. You may need someone on your bench to bail you out, depending on the quality of your running backs. Brees Hall in week 12 had a total of 9 catches, which salvaged his day of 49 yards. It's going to be tough for Brees Hall. He isn't an RB1 right now with the numbers that he's been putting up and the no touchdown upside. When it comes to Brees Hall, you may not have anybody talent-wise that you are going to roll the dice and put out there in your starting lineup, so you're going to have to keep him in. Please keep in mind that Aaron Rodgers, as of the time recording this, is potentially coming back looking at week 16, but by then you may already be out of it if you're banking on Brees Hall to give you RB1 numbers. Just beware when you put him in your lineup. The next guys, if you haven't already permanently benched them, go ahead and permanently bench Dameon Pierce, Miles Sanders, AJ Dillon, and Khalil Herbert. I'm not saying cut them. They're definitely break glass in case of an emergency, which means a better running back getting hurt in your lineup, but those guys should not be starters. Cooper Kupp, week 12, had 3 catches for 18 yards. He was used more as a decoy. You can tell he wasn't 100%. He also had a couple of instances of getting up with that gimpy ankle. But as long as he's on the field, he is a wide receiver one because it's Cooper Kupp. But keep in mind that it looks like the Rams want to fully run the ball, especially with Kyron Williams being healthy. That could potentially open things up, though, on the play action for Cooper Kupp. A well-balanced Rams team is good for all of their weapons, including Kyron Williams, Cooper Kupp, and Puka Nacua. And additional bum wide receivers from week 12. Adam Thielen had 1 catch for 2 yards. The story was good while it lasted. There's just too much tape on the Panthers now. Thielen will get smothered by the defense. They're going to make Bryce Young beat him in other ways. That doesn't look like that's going to happen. You cannot trust him in the fantasy playoffs. DK Metcalf had 3 catches for 32 yards. You still have to start him because I doubt you have anybody talent-wise that's better. But he's just having a bad year, and it could go hand in hand with Geno just looking more and more washed as we speak. And again on this list, Jamar Chase, he has 4 catches for 81 yards in week 12. Those were on the accident. A couple of those big gains were just off of tip drills. I don't feel good about Chase going forward. We don't know if he's QB proof. If he is QB proof, he still holds wide receiver one value. However, his ceiling is not as high as it used to be with Joe Burrow. No more Jamar Chase 50-point games for the rest of the year. That's just not happening. And now some things that you need to pay attention to following week 12. In New Orleans, it's down to Jawan Johnson and Taysom Hill if Chris Olave does not pass concussion protocol. Both tight ends could possibly win you your week. And staying in New Orleans, that also makes Alvin Kamara a bona fide RB1 getting the dump offs, especially with Derek Carr throwing the ball. In Miami, Devon Achane missed week 12 for the Dolphins, and Jeff Wilson got some run. So Mostert loses no value. He's right now a set it and forget it running back going into the playoffs. And 100% Jeff Wilson should be rostered if anything happens to Mostert. Wilson again somehow becomes a potential league winner. Los Angeles Chargers could be calling it a season. There's already rumblings of the coach getting let go. Expect a huge dose of Eckler and Allen. When all else fails, just give it to your playmakers. Outside of Eckler, Allen, and Herbert, there's no other Chargers that need to be rostered. In Jacksonville, Travis Etienne left the game briefly in week 12, and Dearness Johnson came in, and he's looked good for the past few weeks. He is the handcuff to own for the Jacksonville Jaguars. If Etienne goes down, it's no longer Tank Bigsby. Make sure that Dearness Johnson is rostered. And for the Cleveland Browns, Amari Cooper's hurt. DTR is hurt, and it looks like Joe Flacco is taking over as the starter for the Browns. That means Elijah Moore gets a huge boost and is now in starting flex territory. But keep an eye on those injury reports to see exactly what is going on with Amari Cooper. But for sure, DTR is out. Flacco is in. Give a boost to all Cleveland pass catchers, Elijah Moore and David Njoku. That's going to wrap up our week 12 ballers, bums, and beyond. As the week goes on, we're going to give you our must starts, must sit your ass on the bench, and our fantasy matchup of the week, giving you everything you need to prepare to wind down your fantasy season and get ready for the playoffs in your championship run. On behalf of producer extraordinaire Sweet Tea and the football encyclopedia R.W. King, I'm your boy Bombo. See you next time. We out.